Hi everybody, my name is Barry Schwartz and this is the Search Buzz video recap. Today is Friday, December 18th, and this is the search news we covered over at the Search Engine Roundtable at seroundtable.com. First up, we definitely saw some search ranking updates over the past week or two. So there was definitely something that happened around December 10th. A lot of people think it's related to the Phantom or Google quality update that happened previously. Here's a chart from Glenn Gabe who showed the update around November-ish, mid-November. Then on December 4th, which he said, and then again on December 10th from SES for SEMrush. There's definitely discussions around the different forums, Webmaster World, Black Hat forums, and different forums. But there definitely does seem to be one of that update from the November 19th that continued on to November 4th and the 10th, and Google has not confirmed any of these, but there's definitely enough chatter and discussion around it to say there seems to be something that's going on. Also, I noticed that there was a lot of chatter recently, specifically on December 16th, with some of the tracking tools actually noticing the fluctuations as well. So maybe there was another update around that as well. It probably wasn't Penguin or Panda or any of those, but there's definitely a lot of chatter going on around December 16th and the 17th and the 18th around specific updates going on with Google. Again, Google has told us they're not going to specifically do any updates from, I guess, early December through after early January, but there definitely seems to be some core quality updates happening, and Google's algorithms constantly adjusting and changing and indexing. So it's definitely something that's going on that webmasters are taking note of. Google announced that they're going to start indexing HTTPS URLs by default, even if your site's over HTTPS by default. So if your site works on HTTPS, the certificates work, there's no mismatch errors, there's no HTTPS errors, Google's going to index that and show that HTTPS URL, even though if you set your primary domain name to be over HTTP. So Google said this last night. There's certain conditions you might want to read. I have the blog post on seroundtable.com this morning, December 18th, so definitely take a look at that. But basically, Google said when two URLs from the same domain appear to have the same content but are served over different protocol schemes, Google will typically choose to index the HTTPS version if these conditions are met. So that's something you should definitely take notice of. It might impact other things around your traffic and ads and so forth. Google's John Mueller, in a Hangout this week, went ahead and provided some SEO tips. Somebody asked him, give us your 2016 top SEO tips for 2016. And John Mueller, off the top of his head, listed off a bunch of things. He said, obviously, mobile is still very important. He said, definitely look into AMP because Google's going to be pushing AMP significantly. He said Google's going to get better at indexing JavaScript. I'm just going by memory when I wrote because it still hasn't loaded. So again, mobile, AMP, JavaScript. Google's going to get better at indexing JavaScript, so keep note of that. And he also said, obviously, quality content still important. I have the video as well as the transcript over here. I posted it on December 16th, so you want to take a look at that and listen to the whole SEO tip advice from John Mueller. Definitely take a look at that. It's all there for you. Google updated their rich snippet documentation. Two things. One is they said that author name is now required. That's definitely new. I asked John Mueller about that, and he said that's new. So you now have to have the author and author name in the rich snippet for article markup. In addition to that, they also made changes around AMP. And it's confusing to know what is AMP specific requirements versus what is regular web specific requirements for the rich snippets for articles markup. But Google's John Mueller said they're going to look into ways to make that more easier for people to understand, webmasters to understand. And Kyle Sutton noticed that there's a new thing called main entity of page, which is specifically related to AMP. And John Mueller said yes. These changes are specific to AMP, not for article markup in general, and we'll clarify that in the docs. He also discussed it in the Hangout this morning, which I linked to in that article. Google said there's no technical advantage to splitting up your sitemaps, but as any webmaster and developer will know, when you split up your XML sitemaps, the data you get in Google Search Console is much easier to understand. So if you want to break it out by category pages, article pages, different sections of your site, subdomains, and so forth, that will give you a better insight into how much of your site is being indexed and which portions of your site are being indexed. So if you submit 10,000 pages in one sitemap and only half of them are indexed, but you submit 10,000 pages in a different sitemap and 90% of those pages are indexed, you're probably doing something right on your 90% side versus something wrong on the 50% side. So it's always useful for debugging, John Mueller said, but there's always no specific technical advantage to splitting up your sitemap. Google said you should avoid using special characters in your URLs. This is something that's pretty common for most people, but specifically not to use commas, semicolons, colons, spaces, quotes, etc. You could definitely use hyphens. That's definitely very common, but spaces are also very common, but Google doesn't like it. So definitely try to avoid those as well when you're setting up a URL structure for your new or existing site. Google has updated their app indexing documentation. There's nothing really new specifically in terms of the implementation process, but they actually updated the documentation to make it easier and more detailed for developers to understand. So definitely it's worth, if you have app indexing or consider app indexing, even if you deployed it already, you should definitely take a look at that because you may have missed something and it's much easier to look at it now. Google My Business has launched their API. So now you can actually go to the Google My Business API and control and manage all your Google My Business listings. This is mostly important for larger, branches that are like McDonald's or have lots of different branches, and they want to be able to update their holiday hours very quickly across all their branches and all their franchises and all their locations, as well as special hours, permanent close, managing photos, managers, and so forth. You can manage all that in the API. So this is very good for those larger businesses as well as for, I believe, local SEOs that want to manage multiple clients. This is pretty cool. Google has an interactive bubble leveler, where you can actually see if something is level or not. It looks like this. Let me see if I can actually launch it. So first, it looks like, So it looks like this. You Google bubble level on your mobile phone. It has to be a mobile device, and it would actually let you tilt it. Let me see if it actually works on the iPad. It should, because it's the same technology as a mobile phone. So here it is. It's coming up, as you can see. And now if I tilt my iPad, you'll see it uses the accelerometer and different technology in the iPad to see if it's level. So that's a pretty cool, neat feature. I consider that more of a calculator feature versus an Easter egg feature. Google has replaced, we discussed this about a month or two ago, that Google was testing replacing the web link with the all link, and now that's official. So now, let me just show you the before and after. So it used to look like this with a web link, and now it has all. Small change, but it's been web forever, so significant enough. Google did launch the holiday decorations. I think it was like on the 7th or 8th day of Hanukkah, but if you do a search for Hanukkah or Kwanzaa or Christmas, Google is going to go ahead and show you their holiday decorations, which they do every year. And for some reason, they waited, and they didn't launch it. I think they forgot about it, or they forgot Hanukkah was so early in the year, and they launched it. So this is the Hanukkah theme: dreidels, menorah, and gifts. Christmas tree, sleds, and candy cones, and as well as the Kwanzaa with the fruits and vegetables and the Kwanzaa candles. In the event, that's that. And finally, if you are, and I definitely recommend it, please download the Search Engine Roundtable app. We made lots of improvements. It's available for Android and iOS. And I'll definitely push you notifications as they break, especially these breaking algorithm updates and so forth. We added some features. The more important features is they can actually swipe quickly through the articles. It's a much better user experience than reading the website on a mobile device for some reason. And we also have Apple Watch support. So if you have an Apple Watch, you could actually read it on your Apple Watch if you wanted to. And of course, let me just show you some stats. So it was very interesting. I've been tracking the app indexing stats in the Google Search Console for a while. When I first launched the app, the data showed huge impressions for the site. It was getting, if you see over here, that's the top line, about 24,000 impressions, which isn't huge for a website, but it's huge for an app. And you can see it was getting crazy impressions. The impressions of this graph, initially when it launched, about 3,000 impressions. Then it leveled out about, around 1,000 impressions or so per day. And then there was a Google Search Console bug where the analytics data in this Google Search Console died. But for some reason, around then, it stayed flat. I've been getting like 2, 3, 4 impressions per day, barely nothing. And John Mueller asked him about that a couple days ago, and he's like, what's possible is that with this bug, Google is running an experiment in this range to show more app content in the results. But around this time, maybe Google stopped that experiment and only showed the app content for those who have installed your app. So basically, he said, get more people to install your app, and you'll see those impressions jump. I guess so. But anyway, I just wanted to share that information. Right now, it looks pretty poor, meaning building an app doesn't necessarily get you more traffic and so forth right now, unless Google changes that up, which they should be doing in the future when they allow public content apps that haven't been installed on people's devices to show up more often than not. In any event, that pretty much recaps the Search Buzz video recap. Again, download the app. And my name again is Barry Schwartz, and the search news we covered over at the Search Engine Roundtable at SEOroundtable.com over the past week. Today is Friday, December 18th. Everyone have a great weekend, and I'll see you guys next. Bye.